Her apartment was an hour away, and the thought of driving there now, tired and emotionally raw, was daunting. "I don't know," she admitted. "Stay here tonight," Ben offered. "I have a spare room." It was David's, but it's clean and ready for guests. "Tomorrow you can decide what you want to do." Rosa hesitated. Staying the night at a stranger's house wasn't something she would normally consider, but nothing about this day had been normal. "Are you sure?" she asked. Ben nodded. "Completely sure. No strings, no expectations, just a safe place to rest." "Thank you," Rosa said, feeling grateful. Tears well up again for everything. Ben showed her to the spare room, which was simple but comfortable with a double bed, a dresser, and a window that looked out over the fields. He gave her a clean towel and an old t-shirt to sleep in. "Bathroom's down the hall," he said. "If you need anything else, just let me know." Ben, Rosa called as he turned to leave. He looked back at her. "Thank you for not asking questions." Ben smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. Sometimes what people need most is space to find their own answers. After he left, Rosa sat on the edge of the bed, trying to process everything that had happened. This morning she'd been a bride-to-be with her future mapped out. Tonight she was in a stranger's farmhouse, her plans shattered, her heart broken. Yet somehow she felt safer here than she had in months. She changed into Ben's t-shirt, which was too big but soft from many washings. After washing her face and brushing her teeth with a new toothbrush Ben had given her, she climbed into bed and was surprised by how quickly sleep came to claim her. In the morning, Rosa woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of coffee. For a moment she was disoriented, not recognizing where she was. Then the events of the previous day came rushing back. Mark's letter, the drive, finding Haven Hill Farm, and Ben. She got up and put on her clothes from yesterday, then made her way to the kitchen. Ben was at the stove, cooking something that smelled delicious. "Good morning," he said when he saw her. "Coffee's ready if you want some." "Yes, please," Rosa said, grateful for the normalcy of morning rituals. Ben poured her a cup and handed it to her. "Sleep okay?" Rosa nodded. "Better than I have in weeks, actually." "Good," Ben said, turning back to the stove. "Breakfast is almost ready. Eggs from my chickens and bread I baked yesterday." They ate breakfast together, the morning light filling the kitchen. Rosa felt strange, both out of place and somehow at home at the same time. "What will you do today?" Ben asked, as they cleared the dishes. Rosa hadn't thought that far ahead. The reality of her situation was setting in. She would have to face her apartment, her friends, her family. She would have to cancel wedding plans and return gifts. The thought was overwhelming. "I don't know," she admitted. "I should go home, I guess. Start dealing with everything." Ben nodded, understanding in his eyes. "You can stay here if you want, for a few days. Give yourself some time before you face all that." Rosa looked at him, surprised by the offer. "Why would you do that for me? You don't even know me." Ben was quiet for a moment, considering his words. "When David died, I shut myself away from everyone. I thought it was easier that way, but it wasn't. It just made the pain last longer." He looked at her directly. No one should have to face heartbreak alone. Rosa felt tears threaten again, touched by his kindness. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Ben suggested with a small smile. "The farm is peaceful. It might be good for you to have some space to think." Rosa thought about her apartment, filled with reminders of Mark. She thought about the pitying looks she'd get from friends and family. She thought about the questions and the gossip. Then she looked at Ben's calm face and the peaceful farm beyond the windows. "Yes," she said, "I'd like to stay. Just for a few days." Ben nodded, satisfaction in his eyes. "Good. Now, I have chores to do, but make yourself at home. Rest, explore, whatever you need." As Ben headed outside to work, Rosa stood in the kitchen, feeling like she'd just made a decision that would change everything. She didn't know what the next few days would bring, but for the first time since reading Mark's letter, she felt a small spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, Ben was right. Maybe he could turn her tears into smiles after all. The next few days passed in a gentle rhythm that soothed Rosa's broken heart. Each morning she woke to the sounds of the farm roosters crowing, birds singing, and the distant hum of Ben's tractor in the fields. It was so different from the city noises she was used to. On her third day at Haven Hill Farm, Rosa decided it was time to stop hiding. She borrowed Ben's phone and called her mother. "Rosa, where have you been?" her mother demanded. "I've been worried sick after what Mark did, and then you just disappeared." "I'm sorry, Mom," Rosa said, twisting the phone cord between her fingers. "I needed some time alone. Where are you? I'll come get you." "I'm staying with a friend," Rosa said, looking out the window where she could see Ben working in the garden. Friend wasn't exactly the right word, but it was close enough. "I'm okay, really. I just need some space to think." Her mother sighed. "That man never deserved you. I told you there was something off about him." Rosa smiled despite herself. Her mother had never particularly liked Mark, though she'd kept most of her opinions to herself. "I know, Mom, you were right. Come home, Rosa. We'll face this together." "Not yet," Rosa said firmly. "I'll call you in a few days." "Okay, I love you." After hanging up, Rosa sat at the kitchen table, feeling a mix of guilt and relief. She should go home, face reality, start putting her life back together. But the thought of leaving Haven Hill Farm made her chest tight with anxiety. The screen door opened, and Ben came in, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Everything okay?" he asked, noticing her expression. "Just called my mom," Rosa explained. "She wants me to come home." Ben nodded, washing his hands at the sink. "And what do you want?" It was a simple question, but Rosa realized no one had asked her that in a long time. What did she want? She'd spent so much time trying to be what Mark wanted, the perfect fiancé, ready to be the perfect wife, that she'd lost track of her own desires. "I want to stay here a little longer," she admitted. "If that's still okay with you." Ben dried his hands on a towel and turned to face her. "It's more than okay. I like having you here." Rosa felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. "I like being here." "Good," Ben said with a small smile. "Because I could use some help in the garden today, if you're interested." Rosa looked down at her city-clothes designer jeans and a silk blouse hardly suitable for gardening. "I don't have the right clothes." "I might have something that would work," Ben offered. "Some of my brother's old clothes are still in his room. They'll be too big, but better than ruining what you're wearing." 20 minutes later, Rosa stood in the garden wearing a pair of David's old jeans, held up with a belt cinched tight, and one of his flannel shirts with the sleeves rolled up several times. She felt ridiculous but also strangely comfortable. "What do I do?" she asked, looking at the rows of plants. Ben handed her a basket. "We're picking tomatoes today. The red ones that feel slightly soft when you touch them." Rosa had never picked vegetables before. Growing up in the city, food came from grocery stores, not gardens. But as Ben showed her what to do, she found herself enjoying the simple task. "These taste so much better than the ones from the store," she said, biting into a cherry tomato Ben offered her. The burst of flavor was incredible, sweet and tangy and fresh. "Most things taste better when they're fresh from the garden," Ben said, his smile reaching his eyes. "That's why I started growing my own food after David died. It reminded me that life goes on, that good things can still grow even after loss." Rosa looked at him, understanding what he meant. "Does it get easier?" she asked softly. "The pain." Ben considered her question seriously. "It doesn't go away," he said finally, "but it changes. Becomes something you can carry without it crushing you." They worked side by side, the morning sun warming their backs. Rosa found her thoughts drifting to Mark less and less. Instead, she noticed things like the different shades of green in the garden, the buzz of bees around the flowers, and the peaceful expression on Ben's face as he worked after lunch. Ben needed to fix a broken fence in the north field. "Want to come along?" he asked. "It's a nice walk, about half a mile." Rosa agreed, and they set off together, walking through fields of wheat that rippled like golden waves in the breeze. Ben carried his tools in a canvas bag slung over his shoulder, and Rosa brought a thermos of cold lemonade she'd made that morning. "This place is so beautiful," Rosa said, looking around at the rolling hills and distant mountains. "How long has it been in your family?" 3 generations, Ben replied. "My grandfather bought it after World War II. My dad took over when he got too old to work it, and then David and I inherited it when Dad passed 5 years ago." "You must love it here," Rosa observed. Ben nodded. "It's home." "Is something wrong?" she asked, noticing his furrowed brow. Eli sighed. "Just trying to make the numbers work. Farm's been struggling a bit this year." Lucia sat down beside him, leaving a respectful distance between them. "Is it that bad?" "Not yet," Eli said, closing the ledger. "But it could be if things don't turn around. I've been running it alone since Dad died. It's a lot for one person. And that's why you need help," Lucia said, understanding dawning. "But why offer me the cottage too? You could have hired day labor from town." Eli was quiet for a moment, considering his words. "The farm needs more than just an extra pair of hands. It needs life. When my parents were alive, this place was always busy, always humming with activity. Since they've been gone, it's just been me. It's too quiet." The honesty in his words touched something in Lucia's letters. She knew what it was like to feel alone, even in a crowded room. "I know you think I was crazy making that offer yesterday," Eli continued. "Maybe I was. But I meant what I said about seeing something in you. You've got grit, Lucia, and that little girl of yours has a spark that lights up a room." Lucia didn't know how to respond. No one had spoken to her with such sincere admiration in a very long time. "I'm not looking for any commitments," Eli assured her, misreading her silence. "Just saying why I offered you the job in the cottage. You and Emma bring something this place has been missing." Before Lucia could reply, a truck pulled up the driveway, dust billowing behind it. A woman with salt and pepper hair stepped out, carrying a pie tin. "We've got company," Eli said, standing up. "That's Martha, my cousin. She brings pie every Tuesday." Martha was a plump, energetic woman in her 50s, with keen eyes that missed nothing. She spotted Lucia immediately. "Well, hello there," she said, her friendly tone tinged with curiosity. "I don't believe we've met." "Martha, this is Lucia Marquez," Eli said. "She's helping me with the farm." "Lucia, this is my cousin Martha Wilson. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Wilson," Lucia said politely. "Oh, it's Miss Wilson, dear. Never married." Martha corrected with a wink. But you can call me Martha. Everyone does. She handed the pie to Eli Blueberry. Fresh picked this morning, thanks Martha. Want to come in for coffee? Eli offered. Don't mind if I do, Martha replied, her eyes still on Lucia's letters. So, how long have you been helping Eli? Just started today. Lucia answered honestly. Martha raised an eyebrow. Really? And where are you staying? The old cottage, Eli said before Lucia could respond. Lucia and her daughter Emma just arrived in town, and they needed a place to stay. Martha's expression was unreadable as she followed them into the house. While Eli made coffee, Martha engaged Lucia in what felt like a friendly interrogation, asking about her background, her skills, and her plans. So you're just passing through? Martha asked, sipping her coffee. I was, Lucia admitted. But Eli offered us a place to stay and work, at least for a while. Martha glanced at her cousin with a knowing look. Did he now? Well, isn't that interesting? Eli cleared his throat. The farm needs help. Martha, you know that better than anyone. You've been telling me to hire someone for months. Yes, I have, Martha agreed. Though I didn't expect you to find someone quite so... She looked Luca up and down. Qualified Lucia felt herself blush under Martha's scrutiny. She wasn't sure if the older woman approved of her or not. Had some pie, Eli said, changing the subject as he cut 3 slices. Lucia did an amazing job with the vegetable garden today. Cleared out half the weeds already. Martha's expression softened slightly. Is that right? Well, that garden has been a disaster since Helen passed. Good to see someone's taking care of it. The conversation drifted to town gossip, with Martha filling Eli in on all the latest news. Lucia listened quietly, learning about the community she might be becoming a part of. Oh, and Diane Mitchell asked about you again, Martha said with a sly smile. I think she's hoping you'll ask her to the town dance next month. Eli looked uncomfortable. Diane's nice, but But she's not your type. I know, Martha finished for him. Though heaven knows what your type is, the way you keep to yourself. Her eyes flickered briefly to Lucia. After Martha left, Lucia went to check on Emma, who was still napping. When she returned, she found Eli on the porch again, staring out at his land. Your cousin doesn't approve of me, Lucia said, sitting down beside him. Eli shook his head. Martha's just protective. She's been trying to take care of me since my parents died. She means well. She thinks I'm taking advantage of your kindness, Lucia let us guessed. Martha thinks everyone's trying to take advantage, Eli replied with a small smile. Don't take it personally. She'll warm up to you once she gets to know you. Lucia wasn't so sure, but she appreciated his optimism. Why did she mention that woman? Gianni, she's the bank manager's daughter. Martha's been trying to set us up for years. Eli sighed. She thinks I need to settle down, start a family. And you don't want that? Lucia asked, curious despite herself. Eli was quiet for a moment. I did, once. A long time ago. There was a story there Lucia could tell, but she didn't press. Everyone had a right to their secrets. As the days turned into weeks, Lucia and Emma settled into life at Maple Run Farm. Each morning Lucia would wake early to help with chores. Emma quickly became Eli's little shadow, following him around the farm and absorbing everything he taught her about animals and plants. Lucia finished clearing the vegetable garden and moved on to other tasks. She cleaned the house, organized the pantry, and even helped Eli repair the chicken coop. In the evenings, after Emma was asleep, she and Eli would sit on the porch, talking about everything and nothing. One evening, as they watched the fireflies dance in the gathering darkness, Eli turned to her with a serious expression. I need to go into town tomorrow to pick up some supplies. I was wondering if you and Emma would like to come along. Lucia hesitated. They'd been at the farm for nearly a month, but they hadn't ventured into town yet. She knew people would talk, would ask questions. We can stop for ice cream at Miller's, Eli added. Emma mentioned she likes strawberry. That sounds nice, Lucia found herself saying, unable to resist the hopeful look in Eli's eyes. The next day, they piled into Eli's old truck and headed into town. Willow Creek was a small place, just a main street with shops on either side, and residential streets branching off. Eli parked in front of the hardware store. I need to pick up some parts for the tractor, he explained. Won't take long. Inside the store, Lucia noticed the curious glances from other customers. A middle-aged man behind the counter greeted Eli warmly. Eli heart twice in 1 month. Must be some kind of record. Eli smiled. Hey Frank, need those parts we talked about. Frank's eyes shifted to Lucia and Emma. And who might these lovely ladies be? This is Lucia Marquez and her daughter Emma, Eli said. They're staying at the farm. Lucia's helping me get the place back in shape. Frank's eyebrows rose slightly. Is that right? Well, nice to meet you both. As Eli discussed parts with Frank, Lucia browsed the store, aware of the whispers around her. Emma stayed close, holding her hand tightly. Mama, why is everyone looking at us? Emma whispered. Because they don't know us yet, sweetheart, Lucia explained softly. New faces are interesting in a small town. When they finished at the hardware store, they walked down Main Street to Miller's ice cream parlor. The bell above the door jingled. As they entered, a teenage girl behind the counter smiled at them. "Hi, Mr. Hart. Long time no see." "Hello, Katie. We'd like 3 ice creams, please. Strawberry for the little lady here." And he looked at Lucia. "Lettuce vanilla for me," she said, "and chocolate for me," Eli finished. As they sat at a small table by the window, enjoying their ice cream, a well-dressed woman entered the shop. She spotted Eli immediately and made her way over. "Eli Hart, what a surprise. We hardly ever see you in town these days." Eli stood politely. "Hello, Diane. How are you?" "I'm well, thank you," Diane replied, her gaze shifting to Lucia and Emma with undisguised curiosity. "Won't you introduce me to your friends?" "Of course. Diane Mitchell. This is Lucia Marquez and her daughter Emma. They're staying at the farm. Lucia, Emma. This is Diane, an old friend." Diane's smile tightened slightly. "How nice. And how long will you be visiting our little town?" Before Lucia could answer, Eli said, "Lucia and Emma aren't just visiting. They're living at the farm now. Lucy's been a tremendous help." Diane's eyebrows shot up. "Living at the farm, that's interesting." The way she said interesting made it clear she found it anything but. "We should be going," Eli said, sensing the tension. "Still have a few more stops to make." As they left the ice cream parlor, Lucia could feel Diane's eyes boring into her back. "I'm sorry about that," Eli said as they walked to the truck. "Diane can be a bit intense." "She likes you," Lucia observed. Eli sighed. "Martha's been pushing us together for years. Diane's father owns the bank that holds the mortgage on the farm. Martha thinks it would be a convenient match, would it?" Lucia asked, unable to keep a hint of jealousy from her voice. Eli stopped walking and turned to face her. "No," he said firmly, "it wouldn't. Diane's a nice woman, but there's never been anything between us, despite what she or Martha might hope." The sincerity in his eyes made Lucia's heart skip a beat. For a moment, they stood there, looking at each other, something unspoken passing between them. Emma tugged on Lucia's hand. "Mama, can we see the toy store, please?" The moment broken, Lucia looked down at her daughter. "I don't know, sweetheart. We don't have money for toys right now. We can just look," Emma pleaded. "Please." "I don't see why not," Eli said. "It's just down the street." The toy store was small but charming, with displays of dolls, trains, and stuffed animals in the window. Emma's eyes grew wide as they entered, taking in all the colorful toys. "Remember, we're just looking," Lucia reminded her gently. As Emma moved from shelf to shelf, exclaiming over each new discovery, Lucia watched her with a mixture of joy and sadness. There had been so little joy in their lives lately, so few opportunities for Emma to just be a child. Eli stood beside her, observing Emma with a soft expression. "She's a wonderful kid," he said quietly. "She is," Lucia agreed, a lump forming in her throat. Emma stopped in front of a display of stuffed animals, her attention captured by a small plush horse. It was brown with a white star on its forehead, just like the mare at the farm. "Look, Mama. It looks like Mr. Eli's horse." Lucia nodded, seeing the resemblance. "It does, sweetheart." Emma looked longingly at the horse but didn't ask to have it, knowing their financial situation all too well. That quiet acceptance broke Lucia's heart. When Emma moved on to look at a dollhouse, Eli quietly approached the counter. Lucia didn't notice until he returned with a small paper bag. "What's that?" she asked. "Just a little something," Eli replied. "CRYPTICALLY." As they were leaving the store, Eli bent down to Emma's level. "I got something for you," he said, pulling the stuffed horse from the bag. "To remind you of Star when we're in town." Emma's face lit up with pure joy. "Really for me?" "Really," Eli confirmed, smiling as Emma hugged the toy to her chest. "What do you say, Emma?" Lucia prompted, even as she felt conflicted about the gift. "Thank you, Mr. Eli," Emma exclaimed, impulsively throwing her arms around his neck. Eli looked surprised but pleased by the hug. He patted Emma's back awkwardly. "You're welcome, little lady." As they walked back to the truck, Emma clutched her new treasure tightly, skipping ahead of them. "You didn't have to do that," Lucia said softly. "I wanted to," Eli replied. "It's just a small thing." "Not to her," Lucia said, watching her daughter's happiness. "Not to me either." Eli looked at her, a question in his eyes. "Is it okay? I should have asked first." Lucia found herself smiling. "It's okay, just ... No more surprises without asking." "All right." Eli nodded, relief washing over his face. "Deal." As they drove back to the farm, Emma chatted excitedly about her new toy and all the things they'd seen in town. Lucia found herself watching Eli as he drove, noticing the gentle way he responded to Emma's questions, the patience in his voice. Something was happening here, something she hadn't planned for. Feelings she thought she'd buried were beginning to resurface, like seeds long dormant suddenly finding sunlight. It scared her. Trust had cost her dearly before. But watching Eli with Emma, seeing the kindness in his actions, Lucia wondered if perhaps some risks were worth taking. That as the truck turned onto the farm's long driveway, Emma fell quiet, hugging her horse and looking out the window at the place that was beginning to feel like home. "Welcome back," Eli said softly. And Lucia wasn't sure if he was talking to Emma or to her. Either way, she realized with a start, it felt true. They were home, 2 months had passed since Lucia and Emma arrived at Maple Run Farm. Summer was in full bloom, the fields lush with crops, and the vegetable garden thriving under Lucia's care. The small cottage had become their home, decorated with wildflowers Emma collected and drawings she made of the farm animals. Each day brought them closer to Eli. He was teaching Emma how to ride Star, the gentle mare, holding her securely as the horse walked slowly around the paddock. Lucia watched from the fence, her heart full at the sound of her daughter's delighted laughter. "Look, Mama, I'm riding," Emma called out. "I see you, sweetheart," Lucia called back. "You're doing great." Eli glanced over at Lucia, a warm smile on his face. These moments had become precious to all of them, simple, quiet times when the world seemed perfect. But not everyone in Willow Creek shared their contentment. News traveled fast in small towns, and the presence of a single mother and her daughter living on Eli Hart's farm had sparked plenty of gossip. Martha had warmed to Lucia somewhat, impressed by her work ethic and the visible improvements to the farm, but others, like Diane Mitchell, viewed Lucia with suspicion and resentment. One evening, as Lucia was preparing dinner in Eli's kitchen routine they had fallen into naturally, the phone rang. Eli answered it, his expression growing serious as he listened. "I understand," he said finally. "I'll be there first thing tomorrow." When he hung up, Lucia could see the worry in his eyes. "What's wrong?" she asked. Eli sighed heavily. "That was Jack Wilson, Martha's husband. There's a problem with the farm loan. The bank wants to meet with me tomorrow." "Is it serious?" Lucia asked, setting down the knife she'd been using to chop vegetables. "Could be," Eli admitted. "The farm hasn't been profitable for a couple of years. I've been making minimum payments, but—" He trailed off, rubbing his forehead. "I thought I had more time to turn things around." Lucia felt a cold knot of fear in her stomach. The farm had become their sanctuary, their hope for a stable future. "Is there anything I can do?" Eli shook his head. "Not unless you've got $1,000 hidden in that cottage," he said, attempting a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The next morning, Eli dressed in his one good suit and drove into town for the meeting. Lucia tried to keep busy, weeding the garden with Emma at her side, but her mind kept returning to Eli in the bank. Shortly before noon, Martha's car pulled up the driveway. She stepped out, her face grim. "Martha," Lucia greeted her, wiping her hands on her jeans. "What brings you by?" "I thought you should know what's happening," Martha said, her usual briskness tempered with concern. "Eli's at the bank with Thomas Mitchell, Diane's father," Lucia remembered. "What does he want?" Martha glanced at Emma, who was playing nearby with her stuffed horse. "Perhaps we should talk inside," she suggested. In the kitchen. Martha didn't bother with small talk. "Thomas Mitchell is calling in Eli's loan. Says the farm hasn't been turning enough profit." Lucia felt her stomach drop. "Can he do that?" "Legally, yes," Martha sighed. "There are clauses in the contract, but it's no coincidence this is happening now, after you and Emma arrived." "What do you mean?" Lucia asked, though she suspected she knew. Martha gave her a pointed look. "Diane Mitchell has had her eye on Eli for years. Then suddenly, a pretty young woman and her daughter move onto his farm. People are talking. Lucia letters some folks think you single quotes taking advantage." "That's ridiculous," Lucia said, anger flaring. "Eli offered us a place to stay in exchange for work. There's nothing improper about it." "You and I know that," Martha agreed. "But small towns run on gossip, and the Mitchells have a lot of influence in Willow Creek." Lucia felt sick. Had her presence put Eli's farm at risk? What can be done? "Eli needs to convince Thomas that he can make the farm profitable again," Martha said. "Or he needs to come up with enough money to pay off a significant portion of the loan." "How much?" Lucia asked. "More than either of us has," Martha replied grimly. "I wish I could help more, but Jack and I are just getting by ourselves." After Martha left, Lucia paced the kitchen, her mind racing. She couldn't let Eli lose his family farm, not because of her. Not after all he'd done for them. When Eli returned late that afternoon, his face told her everything she needed to know. "That bad?" she asked softly as he slumped into a kitchen chair. "Mitchell gave me 60 days to either pay $20,000 or vacate the property," Eli said, his voice hollow. Lucia gasped. 20,000. That's impossible." "Not impossible," Eli corrected. "Just unlikely. I could sell some of the livestock, maybe even part of the land, but double quotes." He shook his head. "This farm has been in my family for generations. I promised my father I'd keep it going." "This is because of us, isn't it?" Lucia asked quietly. "Martha told me about Diane Mitchell." Eli looked up sharply. "Martha talks too much. And no, this isn't because of you and Emma. The farm has been struggling for years. Mitchell's just using this as an excuse. But the timing is what it is." Eli interrupted firmly. "I don't want you blaming yourself, Lucia. This is my problem, not yours." But it felt like her problem too. Over dinner, Lucia watched Eli interact with Emma, patiently answering her questions about the farm animals, his earlier worries hidden behind a gentle smile for her daughter's benefit. That night, after Emma was asleep, Lucia sat on the cottage steps looking up at the star-filled sky. The farm was peaceful in the moonlight, so different from the chaotic life they'd led before arriving here. A sound made her turn. Eli was walking toward the cottage, his silhouette familiar now in the darkness. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, gesturing to the step beside her. "It's your farm," Lucia replied, moving over to make room. "For now," Eli said with a wry smile, sitting down, though maybe not for long. They sat in silence for a moment, the night alive with the sound of crickets and the occasional hoot of an owl. "I've been thinking," Lucia finally said. "Maybe Emma, and I should leave." Eli turned to her, surprise and hurt in his eyes. "Leave why?" "You know why," Lucia said softly. "The town gossip, the Mitchells, we're making things harder for you." "That's not true," Eli insisted. "Having you and Emma here, it's the best thing that's happened to this farm in years. To me too," he added quietly. Lucia felt her heart skip a beat at his words. "But you'd farm, I'll figure something out," Eli said, though his voice lacked conviction. "I've faced tough times before." "Not like this," Luciella argued. "Not with a bank threatening to take everything." Eli was quiet for a long moment. "Where would you go?" he finally asked. The question hung in the air between them. The truth was, Lucilletta's didn't know. Back to the road, to the uncertainty and struggle they'd known before. The thought made her chest tighten with fear. "I don't know," she admitted. "But I can't let you lose your home because of us." "It wouldn't be because of you," Eli said firmly. "And besides, I haven't lost it yet." He reached over hesitantly and took her hand. His palm was warm and calloused against hers, strong from years of farm work. "I don't want you to go, Lucia," he said, his voice low and earnest. "These past 2 months having you and Emma here, it's like the farm has come alive again. Like I've come alive again." Lucia looked at their joined hands, then up at Eli's face, shadowed in the moonlight. She saw honesty there, and something more, something that made her heart race. "I don't want to go either," she whispered. Eli's gaze dropped to her lips, and for a moment Lucia thought he might kiss her, but then he looked away, releasing her hand. "We'll figure this out," he promised, "together." The next morning Lucia woke with new determination. If Eli needed to make the farm profitable again, she would help him. She had picked up a lot about farm operations in the past 2 months, and she had ideas. After breakfast, she found Eli in the barn checking on a pregnant cow. "I've been thinking," she said without preamble. "You have all this land, but you're only using part of it for crops. What if we expanded?" Eli looked up, surprised by her directness. "Expanded how?" "Organic vegetables," Lucia suggested. "My grandmother grew them. They sell for a premium, and there's a growing market. The health food store in town could be a starting point." Eli considered this. It could work, but it would take time too. Established time we don't have, and we'd need startup money for seeds, equipment. "What about your honey?" Lucia said. "I noticed your beehives are producing more than you can use. We could jar it, sell it at the farmer's market in the next town over. My cousin used to do that, made good money." A spark of interest lit Eli's eyes. "That's actually not a bad idea. The hives are producing well this year." Encouraged, Lucia continued. "And what about agritourism? City folks love to visit farms, especially ones as pretty as Maple Run. We could offer tours, hay rides for kids, maybe even set up a small farm stand." "Whoa," Eli said, a small smile forming. "You've really thought about this." "I have," Lucilletta admitted. "I want to help Eli. This farm means something to me too now." Eli's expression softened. "Thank you," he said simply. Over the next few weeks, they worked tirelessly to implement Lucia's ideas. They bottled honey in jars Martha found in her attic, designed simple labels, and took them to the farmer's market. To their surprise, they sold out within hours. The farm stand was next. They set it up at the end of the driveway, selling fresh eggs, vegetables from Lucia's thriving garden, and more honey. Word spread quickly, and soon they had regular customers driving from neighboring towns. Emma did her part too, charming visitors with her knowledge of the farm animals. Eli taught her to collect eggs carefully, and she took pride in placing them in cartons for sale. One evening, as they tallied their earnings for the week, Eli looked at Lucia with newfound respect. "We made more this week than I usually make in a month," he said, amazed. "Your ideas are working." Lucia smiled, pleased but cautious. "It's a start, but we're still a long way from $20,000. "True," Eli acknowledged, "but it's more hope than I had before." The next day, a sleek black car pulled up to the farm. Thomas Mitchell himself stepped out, followed by his daughter Diane. They made an imposing pair, him in an expensive suit, her in a designer dress that seemed wildly impractical for a farm visit. Eli was in the field, so Lucia greeted them at the farm stand. "Mr. Mitchell, Miss Mitchell," she said politely. "Can I help you with something? We have fresh eggs and honey today." Thomas Mitchell regarded her coldly. "We're not here to shop, Ms. Marquez. We're looking for Eli." "I'll get him for you," Lucia offered, but Diane cut her off. "We'll wait here," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Why don't you run along and tell him we've arrived?" Swallowing her pride, Lucia went to find Eli. He was repairing a fence in the back field, his shirt damp with sweat. "The Mitchells are here," she told him, "both of them." Eli's expression darkened. "What do they want?" "They didn't say, but they don't look happy." When they returned to the farm stand, they found Emma showing Diane the stuffed horse Eli had given her. Diane was barely concealing her impatience. Thomas, Diane, Eli greeted them. "This is a surprise. I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd see how things are progressing with your payment plan," Thomas said, his gaze taking in the modest farm stand with obvious skepticism. "We're working on it," Eli replied evenly. "The farm's income has increased significantly in the past few weeks." Thomas raised an eyebrow. "Has it now? And I suppose that's due to your new ... arrangement." His eyes flicked to Lucia and back. Eli's jaw tightened. "Lucia has brought some excellent ideas to the farm. Our honey and vegetables are selling well, and we're exploring other revenue streams." "How charming," Diane interjected, her smile not reaching her eyes. "A regular little family business." Lucia felt her cheeks burn at the implication, but she held her tongue. This wasn't the time for confrontation. "Perhaps we could speak privately," Eli Thomas suggested. "Business matters. Anything you have to say can be said in front of Lucia," Eli replied firmly. "She's my partner in this." The word partner sent a warm flutter through Lucia's chest, even as she noted Diane's sour expression. "Very well," Thomas said stiffly. "I've been reviewing your situation, Eli, and I'm concerned that even with these modest improvements, you won't be able to meet the terms we discussed." "We still have time," Eli pointed out. "Yes, but time isn't always the answer," Thomas continued smoothly, "which is why I'd like to propose an alternative." "I'm listening," Eli said cautiously. "The Mitchell Agribusiness Group has been looking to expand its operations in this area. We'd be prepared to buy Maple Run Farm at a fair market valuing if to pay off your loan and leave you with a comfortable sum to start fresh elsewhere." Eli's expression hardened. "Maple Run isn't for sale." "Don't be hasty," Thomas advised. "This is a generous offer, considering the circumstances. My associates have already drawn up preliminary paperwork." He gestured to the folder Diane was holding. "I said, the farm isn't for sale," Eli repeated, his voice low but firm. Thomas sighed, as if dealing with a stubborn child. "Eli, be reasonable. Even if your little side ventures are successful, they won't generate enough to save the farm. The property is worth more as part of our larger operation." "And what would happen to it?" Lucia asked, unable to stay silent any longer. Thomas glanced at her dismissively. "That's hardly your concern." "Ms. Marquez, it is my concern," Lucia insisted. "This farm has been in Eli's family for generations. It's more than just land and buildings." Diane stepped forward, her eyes cold. "And how long have you been here?" 2 months. 3. "You're hardly in a position to lecture anyone about family legacy." Eli moved closer to Lucia, his presence steady and supportive. "I appreciate the offer, Thomas, but my answer is no. We'll meet the terms of the loan." Thomas's face hardened. "I hope you reconsider, Eli. This offer won't be on the table forever." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and just so you know, the health inspector will be visiting all farm operations in the county next week. I trust your enterprise meets all regulations." The threat was thinly veiled, and Lucia felt a chill run down her spine. After the Mitchells left, Eli kicked at the ground in frustration. "They're not going to make this easy." "What did he mean about the health?" Inspector Lucia asked, worried. "It means we need to make sure everything is up to code," Eli explained. "The honey, the eggs, the stand, everything." That evening, after Emma was asleep, Eli and Lucia sat at his kitchen table, surrounded by regulatory documents they'd printed at the town library. The requirements were overwhelming. "We need special permits for the honey," Lucia noted, scanning one page. "And the eggs need to be properly washed and graded. And the stand needs a business license," Eli added, rubbing his tired eyes. "Plus, inspection certificates for the kitchen if we're preparing any food items." Lucia felt despair creeping in. "Can we do all this in time?" Eli reached across the table and took a hand. "We have to try." The next day, they drove to the county seat to file for the necessary permits. The process was complicated and expensive, eating into their modest profits. But they couldn't risk being shut down, not with the farm's future at stake. Back at Maple Run, they worked tirelessly to bring everything up to code. Eli installed a proper washing station for the eggs, while Lucia organized the honey production area according to regulations. Martha and Jack came by to help, impressed by their determination to make a good team, Martha observed, watching them work side by side. "We're just trying to save the farm," Lucia said, though she couldn't deny the truth in Martha's words. She and Eli had fallen into a natural rhythm, anticipating each other's needs, supporting each other through long days of work. The night before the health inspection, they stayed up late, double-checking everything. Emma had been tucked into bed in the main house, too tired to walk back to the cottage. "I think we've done all we can," Eli said finally, collapsing onto the porch steps. Lucia sat beside him, exhaustion seeping into her bones. "I hope it's enough." "Thank you," Eli said suddenly, turning to look at her, "for everything you've done. I couldn't have managed any of this without you." In the soft porch light, his face was open and vulnerable in a way Lucia hadn't seen before. She felt drawn to him, the connection between them stronger than ever. "I should be thanking you," she said softly. You took us in when no one else would. Best decision I ever made, Eli replied, his voice husky. The air between them seemed to thicken with unspoken feelings. Eli leaned closer, his gaze dropping to her lips. This time, he didn't look away. When his mouth met hers, Lucia felt a surge of warmth spread through her body. His kiss was gentle at first, questioning, and then more certain as she responded. His hand came up to cup her cheek, his touch tender. When they finally pulled apart, Lucia's heart was racing. She hadn't expected this, hadn't expected the rush of emotion that came with it. I've wanted to do that for a while, Eli admitted, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. Why didn't you? Lucia asked, breathless. I was afraid, he confessed. Afraid you'd think I was taking advantage of your situation. Afraid you'd leave. I'm not going anywhere, Lucia assured him, surprising herself with the certainty she felt. Eli's smile was like sunrise after a long night. Good, he said simply, and kissed her again. The health inspector arrived promptly at 9 the next morning. He was a stern-faced man with a clipboard and a meticulous eye for detail. Lucia stood nervously beside Eli as the inspector examined every aspect of their operation. Your honey production area is well organized, he noted, making a check on his form, and the egg washing station meets requirements. They followed him to the farm stand, where he inspected the display area and refrigeration unit they'd installed for the eggs. You've clearly put in effort to comply with regulations, the inspector said, his expression softening slightly. Most small operations I visit aren't nearly this prepared. Eli and Lucia exchanged hopeful glances. There are a few minor issues, the inspector continued, but nothing that would warrant shutting you down. I'll note them in my report, and you'll have 30 days to address them. Relief washed over Lucia as they had passed. After the inspector left, Eli swept her into his arms, spinning her around in celebration. We did it, Lucia laughed, the weight of worry lifting from her shoulders. We did it, she agreed, wrapping her arms around his neck. Their victory was short-lived, however. The following day, a letter arrived from the bank, moving up their payment deadline by 2 weeks. They're not playing fair, Eli said, anger evident in his voice as he read the letter. Thomas is pushing us into a corner. Despite their increasing sales, they were still far from the $20,000 they needed. The new deadline gave them less than a month. We need to think bigger, Lucia said, her mind racing. What about a farm festival? We could invite the whole county, charge admission, sell food and crafts. Eli considered this. It could work, but we'd need help, lots of it. Then let's ask for help, Lucia suggested. Martha and Jack, your other friends in town, people who care about Maple Run. Word of their plans spread quickly. Martha mobilized her friends from church. Jack reached out to his buddies from the volunteer fire department, and even Frank from the hardware store offered to donate supplies. As preparations for the festival began, Lucia was touched by the community's response. People she barely knew showed up to help set up booths, string lights in the barn for a dance, and prepare food for the event. I can't believe how many people care about this place, she said to Eli one evening as they watched volunteers transform the farm. It's not just the farm they care about, Eli replied, squeezing her hand. It's us, you, me, and Emma. We've become something special here. Lucia letters, people can see that. The day of the festival dawned bright and clear. Cars lined the long driveway and spilled onto the road. Families poured in, paying the entrance fee cheerfully and exploring the activities they'd set up around the farm. Emma was in her element, leading children on tours of the animal pens, her knowledge and enthusiasm earning smiles from parents. Lucia managed the food booths, where Martha and her friends served homemade pies, fried chicken, and fresh lemonade. Eli moved through the crowd, thanking people for coming, his face more relaxed than Lucia had seen it in weeks. In the barn, a local band played country music, and couples danced on the makeshift floor. As evening approached, Lucia took a moment to step away from the bustle. She walked to the edge of the property, where she could see the entire farm spread out before her. The lights strung between trees twinkled like stars. Laughter and music drifted on the breeze, and for the first time in years, she felt truly at home. There you are, Eli's voice came from behind her. He approached, his smile warm in the fading light. I've been looking for you. Just taking it all in, Lucia explained, gesturing to the scene before them. Eli stood beside her, their shoulders touching. It's something, isn't it? I never thought I'd see Maple Run like this again, full of life, full of people. It's beautiful, Lucia agreed. Martha's been counting the money, Eli said, a note of excitement in his voice. Between the entrance fees, food sales, and donations, we've raised almost $15,000. Lucia's heart leaped. That's amazing, but it's still not enough. No, Eli acknowledged, but it's closer than we were yesterday. And there's something else. He took her hand and led her back toward the house. On the porch, Emma was sitting with an elderly couple Lucia didn't recognize. The woman was holding Emma's stuffed horse, examining it with a soft smile. Lucia, Eli said, I'd like you to meet Helen and Robert Turner. They own Turner's Appleseed Farm on the other side of the county. The couple stood as they approached. Helen, a petite woman with silver hair and kind eyes, stepped forward. "So you're Lucia," she said warmly. "We've heard so much about you from Martha, and this little lady has been telling us all about her animals." She smiled at Emma. "It's nice to meet you," Lucia said, curious about why Eli had brought her to meet them. Robert, tall and dignified despite his years, spoke up. "Eli tells us you've been the driving force behind saving Maple Run." "We've done it together," Lucia corrected, glancing at Eli. "That's what we hear," Helen said with a knowing smile. "And that's why we're here. You see, Robert and I are retiring. Our children moved away years ago, and we've been looking for the right people to take over our farm." Lucia looked at Eli, confused. "The Turners want to sell us 50 acres of their apple orchard," Eli explained, excitement in his voice. "At a price we can afford with the money we've raised." "But why would you sell to us?" Lucia asked the Turners. "Surely there are other buyers who could pay more." "There are," Robert acknowledged, "including Mitchell Agribusiness, but we don't want our land going to some corporation that will tear out 100-year-old trees for profit. We want it to go to people who understand what farming really means. People like you too," Helen added, "who are willing to fight for a farm, for a legacy." Lucia felt overwhelmed by their generosity. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Eli suggested, taking her hand. "With the apple orchard, we can expand our operation, increase our income significantly. It might be enough to convince the bank to restructure the loan. But we still don't have the full 20,000, Lucia pointed out. "That's the other piece of news," Eli said, his eyes shining. "Frank from the hardware store has a brother who works at First National Bank in the city. He thinks they might be willing to refinance our loan at a better rate, take it away from Mitchell's bank entirely." Hope bloomed in Lucia's chest. "Is that possible?" "It's worth trying," Eli said. "What do you say? Are you with me?" Lucia looked at Emma, chatting happily with Helen Turner, then back at Eli. His eyes held not just hope but something deeper: love, commitment, a future. "I'm with you," she said firmly. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together." As the festival continued around them, Lucia felt something shift inside her, the last of her walls coming down. The fear that had driven her for so long finally giving way to trust. Here, with Eli and Emma, she had found more than just a job or a place to stay. She had found a home, a family, a second chance, and she wasn't about to let anyone take that away. The days following the farm festival were a whirlwind of activity. Eli and Lucia drove to the city to meet with Frank's brother at First National Bank, bringing their business plan, profit projections, and the promise of the apple orchard purchase. "You've put together an impressive package," said James Wilson, the loan officer, as he reviewed their paperwork, "especially considering the short timeline." "We didn't have much choice," Eli explained. "Willow Creek Bank moved up our deadline, unexpectedly." James nodded knowingly. "Thomas Mitchell has a reputation for aggressive tactics, but his loss could be our gain." He closed the folder and looked at them both. "I'll need to present this to the loan committee, but I'm optimistic. You should hear from us within a week." As they drove back to Maple Run, Lucia's mind was filled with both hope and worry. "Do you think they'll approve it?" she asked. Eli reached across the seat to take her hand. "I think we've got a good chance." James seemed impressed with what we've accomplished in such a short time. "A lot of that is thanks to you," Eli added, glancing at her with warm eyes. "Your ideas, your determination, you've breathed new life into Maple Run." Lucia smiled, squeezing his hand. "We did it together, you and me and Emma." The mention of her daughter brought a new thought to mind. "Speaking of Emma, I should enroll her in school soon. The fall term starts in a few weeks." Eli's expression brightened. "So you're really staying, no matter what happens with the bank?" "I'm really staying," Lucia confirmed, the certainty in her heart stronger than ever. "This is our home now." The word "our" hung between them, full of promise. When they returned to the farm, they found Martha sitting on the porch with Emma, teaching her how to shell peas. "There you are," Martha called out. "How did the meeting go?" "Better than expected," Eli replied, climbing the porch steps. "James is taking our application to the loan committee. We should know something soon." "That's wonderful news," Martha said, genuine relief in her voice. "And there's more good news." Helen Turner called. "She and Robert have the paperwork ready for the orchard sale whenever you're ready." Emma looked up from her peas. "Are we getting apple trees, Mr. Eli?" "We sure are, little lady," Eli answered, ruffling her hair affectionately. "A whole orchard full of them." "Can I help pick the apples?" Emma asked eagerly. "You'll be our chief apple inspector," Eli assured her with a wink. That evening, after Martha left and Emma was tucked into bed in the cottage, Eli and Lucia sat on the porch swing, his arm around her shoulders as they watched the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. "It feels almost too good to be true," Lucia murmured. "A few months ago, Emma and I were walking down a dusty road with nowhere to go. And now, ... And now you're home," Eli finished for her, pulling her closer. "Home," Lucia repeated, savoring the word. "I never thought I'd have that again." Eli turned to face her, his expression serious. "Lucia, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have explained before." Lucia felt a flicker of unease. "What is it?" Eli took a deep breath. "You asked me once if I wanted to settle down, start a family. I told you I did. Once there's more to that story. He looked out at the fields, gathering his thoughts. Her name was Sarah. We were engaged 6 years ago. She grew up here in Willow Creek, but she always dreamed of city life. I thought I could make her happy here, make the farm enough for her. Lucia listened quietly, sensing this was something Eli needed to share. 2 weeks before our wedding, she told me she couldn't go through with it. Said she'd been offered a job in Chicago, that she'd suffocate if she stayed here. His voice was steady, but Lucia could hear the old pain beneath it. She left the next day. I haven't seen her since. I'm sorry, Lucia said softly, understanding. Now his hesitation, his careful approach to their relationship. Don't be, Eli replied, turning back to her. It hurt at the time, but now I understand it was for the best. Sarah never really loved the farm, never saw it as home the way I do. The way you do. He took her hands in his. Trying say, Lucia, is that I know what it feels like to have someone walk away. I know what it feels like to be left behind. And I promise you, I will never do that to you or Emma. Tears welled in Lucia's eyes at the sincerity in his voice. I believe you, she whispered. Eli brushed a tear from her cheek. When you showed up that day, looking for work, something inside me recognized you. Not just as someone who needed help, but as someone who belonged here, with me. Is that why you offered me the wife position? Lucia asked with a small smile. Eli chuckled. That wasn't my smoothest moment, was it? But yes, I guess some part of me knew, even then. He leaned forward and kissed her softly, his lips warm against hers. I love you, Lucia Marquez, you and Emma both. I love you too, Lucia replied, the words coming easily, naturally, as if they'd been waiting inside her all along. The next morning, they drove to the Turner's farm to sign the paperwork for the orchard. The elderly couple welcomed them warmly, with fresh apple cider and homemade donuts. We can't thank you enough for this opportunity, Eli said as Robert laid out the documents on the dining room table. No need for thanks, Robert replied. Helen and I have been praying for the right people to take over part of our land. When Martha told us about you two, we knew our prayers had been answered. Helen smiled at Lucia letters. Martha says you have quite the green thumb. Those apple trees will flourish under your care. I just know it. I'll do my best, Lucia promised, and Emma can't wait to help with the harvest. Such a delightful child, Helen said warmly. She reminds me of our daughter at that age, so curious about everything. As Robert walked them through the contract, Lucia was amazed by the generous terms. The Turners had set a price well below market value and were even offering to provide guidance through the first year of orchard management. This is incredibly generous, Lucia said, overwhelmed by their kindness. It's our legacy, Helen explained. These trees have been in Robert's family for generations. Money comes and goes, but knowing they'll be cared for by good people, that's worth more than dollars. After signing the paperwork and exchanging hugs, they drove back to Maple Run with a mixture of excitement and disbelief. We own an apple orchard, Lucia said, shaking her head in wonder. We do, Eli confirmed, a grin spreading across his face. Maple Run, an appleseed orchard. Has a nice ring to it, don't you think? When they pulled into the driveway, they were surprised to see Thomas Mitchell's black car parked in front of the house. The banker himself stood on the porch, an envelope in his hand. This can't be good, Eli muttered as they got out of the truck. Mitchell, he greeted coolly as they approached. What brings you by? Thomas Mitchell's face was a mask of professional detachment. I've come to deliver this personally, he said, holding out the envelope. It's the final notice regarding your loan. Eli took the envelope but didn't open it. Our deadline isn't for another 2 weeks. Circumstances have changed. Mitchell replied, the board has reviewed your case and determined that immediate action is necessary. You can't just change the terms whenever you want, Lucia protested, anger rising in her. That's not legal. Mitchell raised an eyebrow at her. Actually, Ms. Marquez, if you read the fine print of the loan agreement, you'll find that the bank reserves the right to accelerate payment under certain conditions. What conditions? Eli demanded. Risk assessment, Mitchell said smoothly. The board believes the farm represents an increasing financial risk. Your diversification efforts, while admirable, are unlikely to generate sufficient revenue to service the debt. Lucia could see the muscle in Eli's jaw tighten as he fought to control his temper. This is because we're buying the Turner orchard, isn't it? You found out we're working with First National. Mitchell's expression hardened. Your financial arrangements are your own business, Mr. Hart. This is simply a business decision. Nope, Eli said firmly. This is personal. You and Diane have been trying to push me off this land for years. Now that Lucia and I have found a way to make it work, you're changing the rules. I don't have to stand here and listen to accusations, Mitchell said stiffly. The notice gives you 3 days to pay in full or vacate the property. 3 days, Lucia gasped. That's impossible. Not my problem, Mitchell replied coldly. Good day. As he walked to his car, Lucia felt rage boiling inside her. Without thinking, she strode after him. You won't get away with this, she called. Out, we'll fight you. Mitchell turned a condescending smile on his face. With what resources, Miss Marquez? You're a single mother with no assets, no family connections, no standing in this community. And Eli's about to lose everything. What exactly do you plan to fight me with? His words stung, but Lucia stood her ground. We have something you'll never understand, Mr. Mitchell. We have love and determination and a community that believes in us. Mitchell laughed dismissively. How touching. Unfortunately, the bank doesn't accept love as currency. He got into his car and drove away, leaving a cloud of dust in his wake. Eli came up behind Lucia and wrapped his arms around her. Don't let him get to you, he said softly. He's just trying to rattle us. Well, it's working, Lucia admitted, leaning back against Eli's solid chest. 3 days, Eli. What are we going to do? Call Frank's brother, Eli said decisively. Tell him what's happened. Maybe First National can fast-track our application. But when they reached James Wilson, by phone, the news wasn't good. The loan committee doesn't meet again until next week, he explained apologetically. Even if I pushed for an emergency review, the fastest we could process everything would be 5 or 6 days. We don't have that long, Eli said, despair creeping into his voice. Mitchell's given us 3 days to pay or get out. That's outrageous, James exclaimed. It might even be illegal. You should talk to a lawyer. We don't have time for legal battles, Lucia Lettuce pointed out. We need a solution now. After hanging up, they sat at the kitchen table, the notice from the bank between them like a ticking bomb. Maybe we could ask the Turners for help, Lucia suggested. Use the money from the festival as a down payment and see if they'd loan us the rest. Eli shook his head. They've done enough already. I can't ask them for more. What about selling some of the livestock? Lucia tried again. The tractor. Anything we don't absolutely need. Even if we sold everything, we'd still be short, Eli said, running his hands through his hair in frustration. And then how would we work the farm? They were still brainstorming when Martha arrived, having heard about Mitchell's visit from her husband Jack, who had seen the banker's car at Maple Run. That snake, Martha fumed when they showed her the notice. This is a new low, even for him. We're running out of options, Eli admitted. Martha's face suddenly lit up. Maybe not. What about the Agricultural Preservation Fund? Jack's on the board. They provide emergency grants to historic farms facing foreclosure. Hope flared briefly, only to be extinguished when Martha made a quick call to Jack. The fund's depleted, she reported glumly after hanging up. They won't have new money until the state budget passes next month. As evening approached, Emma returned from playing at a neighbor's house, blissfully unaware of the crisis, watching her daughter chat excitedly about her day. Lucia felt a cold knot of fear in her stomach. How would she tell Emma that they might have to leave their new home? That night, after Emma was asleep, Lucia and Eli sat on the cottage steps, the weight, with their situation pressing down on them. I'm not giving up, Lucia said firmly. There has to be a way. Eli took her hand, his touch a comfort in the darkness. Even if we lose the farm, he said quietly, we still have each other. We can start over somewhere else. But this is your home, Lucia Lettuce protested. Your family's legacy. Home is where you and Emma are, Eli replied simply. I've realized that the land, the buildings, they're important, but not as important as family. The word family echoed in Lucia's heart. Despite the threat hanging over them, she felt a surge of gratitude for what she'd found here, not just shelter, but love and belonging. Whatever happens, she promised, we'll face it together. They spent the next day making desperate phone calls, reaching out to everyone they knew who might be able to help. The response was touching offers of places to stay, jobs, assistance, with moving, but no one had the kind of money they needed to save the farm. By the evening of the second day, reality was sinking in. They began packing essential items, sorting through what they could take and what they'd have to leave behind. Where will we go? Emma asked, confusion and fear in her small voice as she watched Lucia fold clothes into a suitcase. We're not sure yet, sweetheart, Lucia answered honestly. But we'll be together, you, me, and Eli. Will we come back to visit Star and the chickens? Emma persisted. Lucia's heart broke at the question. I don't know, Emma. The farm might belong to someone else soon. Emma's lower lip trembled. But this is our home. Lucia pulled her daughter close, fighting back tears. Home is where the people you love are, baby. And we'll always be together, no matter where we go. Later that night, unable to sleep, Lucia slipped out of the cottage and walked to the vegetable garden she'd worked so hard to restore. In the moonlight, the plants looked silver and magical, the fruits of her labor thriving despite the uncertainty surrounding them. The sound of footsteps made her turn. Eli approached, his silhouette familiar and dear to her now. Couldn't sleep either, he asked, coming to stand beside her. Lucia shook her head. I keep thinking there must be something we're missing, some solution we haven't thought of. Eli was quiet for a moment, then said, I have one idea. I've been turning it over in my mind all day, but I wasn't sure if it was the right time. What is it? Lucia asked, hope flaring. Eli took her hands in his. Marry me, he said simply. Lucia stared at him, caught off guard. What? Marry me, Eli repeated, his eyes earnest in the moonlight. I know the timing is terrible, with everything that's happening, and I know it's fast. But I love you, Lucia. I want to build a life with you and Emma. Whether it's here or somewhere else, Eli. Lucia breathed, her heart racing. Are you sure? With everything that's happening, I've never been more sure of anything, he said firmly. When I made that crazy offer the day you arrived, some part of me already knew. You're the one I've been waiting for. Tears filled Lucia's eyes, but they were tears of joy amid the sorrow of their situation. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. Eli pulled her close, his kiss full of promise and hope despite the uncertainty surrounding them. For a moment, they stood in the garden, holding each other, finding strength in their love. The next morning, their final day before Mitchell's deadline, they were awakened by the sound of vehicles pulling into the driveway. Eli looked out the window, his expression changing from confusion to disbelief. You need to see this, he said to Lucia letters outside. A crowd had gathered. Martha and Jack were there, along with Frank from the hardware store, Helen and Robert Turner, and dozens of other people from town. They carried tools, paintbrushes, ladders, and boxes of supplies. What's going on? Lucia asked as they stepped onto the porch. Martha stepped forward, a determined look on her face. We heard about Mitchell's deadline. We're here to help. Help? How? Eli asked, looking bewildered. We're going to ready this farm for a wedding, Martha announced. Right here, today, Lucia gasped. How did you know? Martha smiled. Eli called me last night after he proposed. We've been making calls ever since, but the deadline, Lucia began. One problem at a time, Martha interrupted. First, we're going to give you to the wedding you deserve. Then we'll deal with Thomas Mitchell. Before Lucia could protest, Martha was organizing teams of volunteers. Some began stringing lights in the barn, others set up tables and chairs in the yard. The women from Martha's church arrived with food for a reception, and Helen Turner brought flowers from her garden. I don't understand, Lucia said, watching the flurry of activity. How does getting married help with the farm? It might not, Martha admitted, but it gives us all something to fight for. And it shows Mitchell that you're not giving up. That Maple Run is more than just land, it's the heart of a family, a community. Emma, waking to find the farm transformed, was ecstatic about the wedding. Are you going to be my daddy now? She asked Eli, her eyes wide with hope. Eli knelt down to her level. If that's okay with you, little lady, I'd be honored to be your dad. Emma threw her arms around his neck. Yes, please. As the morning progressed, more people arrived. Someone brought a simple white dress for Lucia, and the local pastor offered to perform the ceremony. By noon, the farm was ready, transformed into a rustic wedding venue, more beautiful than anything Lucia could have imagined. Martha helped her prepare in the farmhouse, arranging her hair with wildflowers from the fields. I can't believe this is happening, Lucia said, looking at her reflection in the mirror. Everything's moving so fast. Sometimes fast is right, Martha replied, adjusting a flower. When Jack proposed to me, we'd known each other 3 weeks. Been married 46 years now. But what about tomorrow? Lucia asked, voicing her fear. After the wedding, after the celebration, Mitchell will still be coming for the farm. Martha's expression grew serious. You let us worry about that. Today is for you and Eli. The ceremony was set for 2 o'clock in the apple orchard they'd purchased from the Turners. As Luca waited to walk down the makeshift aisle, Emma beside her in a pretty blue dress holding a small bouquet, she felt a strange sense of peace. Descend whatever happened tomorrow. Today she would become Eli's wife. They would be a family, officially and in every way that mattered. Jack Wilson appeared at her side, offering his arm. Martha thought you might need someone to walk you down the aisle, he said kindly. I'd be honored if you'll have me. Tears threatened to spill over. Thank you, Lucia whispered, taking his arm. The small gathering rose as Lucia began her walk, Emma skipping happily ahead of her. At the end of the aisle stood Eli, his face filled with love and wonder as he watched her approach. The pastor's words were simple and heartfelt, speaking of love, commitment, and the building of a family. When it came time for the vows, Eli took Lucia's hands in his. Lucia, he began, his voice steady and sure. When you walked up to my door that day, I thought you were looking for a job, but what you were really bringing was hope and life and love. You and Emma have filled the empty spaces in my heart. In this farm, I promise to love you both, to protect you, to be the husband and father you deserve, for all the days of my life. Lucia's voice trembled as she responded. Eli, you saw me when no one else would look. You offered me shelter when everyone else turned away. You've given Emma and me a home, a place to belong. I promise to stand by you, to work beside you, to love you with all my heart, through whatever comes our way. The pastor pronounced them husband and wife, and as Eli kissed her, the gathered community erupted in cheers and applause. Emma rushed forward to join their embrace, and the three of them stood together, a family at last. The celebration that followed was joyous and heartfelt. Tables laden with food, music playing in the barn, children running through the yard. Ron had never felt so alive as evening approached. Lucia and Eli stood together, greeting their guests and accepting congratulations. Suddenly, a hush fell over the crowd. Lucia turned to see Thomas Mitchell walking toward them, his face unreadable. Mitchell, Eli acknowledged, his arm tightening protectively around Lucia's waist. I heard there was a wedding, Mitchell said, looking around at the decorated farm. Quite the event. What do you want? Eli asked bluntly. We have until midnight, by your own deadline. Mitchell cleared his throat. Actually, that's why I'm here. There's been a development regarding your loan. The crowd had gathered closer, tension thick in the air. What kind of development? Lucia asked, suspicion in her voice. The bank board met in emergency session this morning, Mitchell explained, looking uncomfortable. They've decided to extend your loan terms. Murmurs ran through the crowd. Martha stepped forward. What brought on this sudden change of heart? Thomas Mitchell shifted his weight. New information came to light regarding the farm's potential, profitability, the apple orchard acquisition, the successful festival. The board felt a reassessment was warranted. Lucia didn't believe him for a second. And this has nothing to do with the letter every board member received from the State Banking Commission, she asked innocently. Mitchell's head snapped up. What letter? Jack Wilson stepped forward, the one questioning the legality of accelerating a loan deadline without proper notice or documentation. Quite a serious matter, I understand. Understanding dawned on Lucia. The community hadn't just been planning a wedding, they'd been fighting for the farm in ways she and Eli hadn't even known. Mitchell's face flushed. I don't know anything about a letter. But regardless, the board has decided to offer you new terms, 5 years, reasonable interest, contingent on continued improvements to the property. And if we refuse, Eli asked, that would be unwise. Mitchell replied stiffly. Eli looked at Lucia, question in his eyes. She nodded slightly. We'll consider your offer, Eli said. Have the paperwork sent over next week. Today we're celebrating. Mitchell looked like he wanted to say more but thought better of it. With a curt nod, he turned and left, the crowd parting to let him pass out as soon as he was gone. Cheers erupted. Jack slapped Eli on the back, and Martha hugged Lucia tightly. How did you manage that? Lucia asked, amazed. Small towns have long memories, Jack explained with a wink. And banking regulations are quite specific about loan modifications. Let's just say Thomas Mitchell's methods didn't hold up well to scrutiny. We've bought you time, Martha added. The rest is up to you too. Thank you, Eli said, his voice thick with emotion. All of you, we couldn't have done this alone. As the celebration continued into the evening, Lucia found herself sitting on the porch swing with Emma asleep in her lap. Eli joined her, putting his arm around her shoulders. Mrs. Hart, he said softly, testing the name. Lucia smiled, leaning into him. I like the sound of that. So do I, Eli agreed, pressing a kiss to her temple. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. The sounds of music and laughter drifted from the barn where their friends and neighbors continued to celebrate. Do you think we'll be okay? Lucia asked quietly. The farm, the loan. I know we will, Eli replied with certainty. We have the orchard, the farm stand is doing well, and First National is still interested in refinancing our loan. Mitchell knows he's lost this battle. It's not just that, Lucia said, stroking Emma's hair gently. It's ... everything US, this new family we've made. Eli's arm tightened around her. That's the part I'm most sure about. You, me, Emma, we were meant to find each other. Everything else is just details. You know, Lucia said thoughtfully, that first day, when you said the wife position was still open, I thought you were crazy, Eli chuckled. I was crazy about you right from the start. And now here we are. Lucia marveled, Mr. and Mrs. Hart. And Miss Emma Hart, Eli added, smiling down at the sleeping child. She'll need to start school soon, Lucia said. We should look into enrollment next week. Already taken care of, Eli said. Martha's sister is the school secretary. Emma's all set to start when the term begins. Lucia shook her head in wonder. You think of everything. I try, Eli said. Modestly, I want to do right by both of you. You already have, Luke A assured him, reaching up to touch his cheek. More than you know. In the barn, the music changed to a slow, romantic tune. Eli stood and held out his hand. May I have this dance, Mrs. Hart? Lucia smiled. What about Emma? I've got her, Martha said, appearing on the porch as if by magic. You to go enjoy your wedding dance. This little one and I will be fine right here. Gently, Lucia transferred her sleeping daughter to Martha's arms. Then she took Eli's hand and let him lead her to the barn where their friends had cleared a space in the center of the floor. As they swayed together to the music, surrounded by the people who had fought for them, Lucia rested her head on Eli's shoulder. She thought about the long, hard road that had led her to Maple Run Farm, the rejections, the struggles, the fear. And then she thought about where that road had led, to Eli, to a home, to a community that had embraced her and Emma as their own. Happy, Eli whispered in her ear. More than I ever thought possible, Lucia replied truthfully, over Eli's shoulder. She could see out the barn door to the farmhouse, the fields beyond, and the stars shining overhead. Maple Run Farm stretched out in all directions, no longer just Eli's family legacy but their shared future. The next morning, Lucia woke early in Eli's bed now, their bed in the farmhouse. Emma was still asleep in the guest room, tired from the excitement of the day before Lucia slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Eli, and went to the kitchen to make coffee. As she waited for it to brew, she stood by the window, looking out. At their land, the sun was just rising, painting the fields gold and making the dew sparkle on the grass. In the distance, she could see the chicken coop, the barn, and beyond that, the apple orchard that would soon provide their first harvest. So much had changed in such a short time. 3 months ago, she had been desperate, homeless, rejected by everyone she approached. Now she was Lucia Hart, with a husband who adored her, a daughter who was thriving, and a farm that was slowly but surely becoming profitable. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to see Eli, his hair rumpled from sleep, his eyes warm with love. "Good morning, wife," he said, coming to wrap his arms around her from behind. "Good morning, husband," she replied, leaning back against his solid chest. Together they watched the sun rise over Maple Run Farm, the beginning of their first full day as husband and wife, as a family, as partners in every sense of the word. "What are you thinking?" Eli asked softly. Lucia smiled, her heart full of gratitude and hope. "I'm thinking that sometimes, when a door closes, it's because you're meant to knock on another one, the right one." Eli turned her in his arms to face him. "The best decision I ever made was opening that door when you knocked," he said, his voice husky with emotion. "And the best decision I ever made was staying," Lucia replied, rising on tiptoes to kiss him. Outside, the farm was coming alive with morning sounds, roosters crowing, horses nickering, the wind rustling through the apple trees. And inside, in the warm kitchen of the farmhouse, Lucia and Eli Hart held each other close, ready to face whatever the new day might bring. Together. A few minutes later, the patter of small feet announced Emma's arrival. She came into the kitchen, rubbing sleep from her eyes, her hair tangled round her face. "Good morning, sweetheart," Lucia said, bending down to kiss her daughter's forehead. "Morning, Mama," Emma replied, then looked up at Eli with a shy smile. "Morning, Daddy." Eli's face lit up at the word, and he knelt down to Emma's level. "Good morning, little lady. How about some pancakes for breakfast?" Emma nodded eagerly. With blueberries." "With blueberries," Eli confirmed, rising to his feet. "And next year we'll have apples from our very own trees to put in them." "Our trees," Emma repeated, clearly liking the sound of it. "Can I help make the pancakes?" "Of course," Lucia said. "This is your home now. You can help with everything." As the three of them moved around the kitchen, Eli mixing batter, Lucia slicing fruit, Emma carefully setting the table, they fell into an easy rhythm, as if they'd been a family forever. Through the window, Lucia could see Martha's car pulling up the driveway. No doubt she was coming to check on them, to make sure Mitchell had kept his word, to see if they needed anything. But they didn't need anything, Lucia realized. They had everything that mattered right here in this kitchen, in this house, on this farm. Eli caught her eye across the room and smiled, as if reading her thoughts. "Welcome home, Mrs. Hart," he said softly, echoing the words he'd spoken in her imagination that first day when she'd contemplated his unexpected proposal. Only now, they weren't just words, they were reality. They were truth. They were the beginning of the rest of their lives. "Welcome home," Lucia repeated, her heart full to bursting. "To all of us." And in that moment, surrounded by love and the promise of a future brighter than any she'd dared to dream, Lucia knew that she had finally found what she'd been searching for all along, not just a job or a shelter, but a place where she and Emma truly belonged. Maple Run Farm was more than land and buildings. It was a home, it was a heart, it was a family, and it was theirs, now and forever. The end.